In the history of aviation, there have been some truly beautiful aircraft, but not all planes were created equal. Some were just downright ugly. Let's count down the top 10 ugliest aircraft ever made. 10. Zerbe Air Sedan. We're kickstarting our count with the Zerbe Air Sedan. Built by Professor Jerome S. Zerbe, it was like nothing seen before in the skies. It had an odd, jutting wing design that made it look more like a puzzle than an aircraft. Now, let me take you back to 1921 in Fayetteville, where the Zerbe Air Sedan had its brief moment of glory. You see, Professor Zerbe wasn't exactly known for his flying successes. In fact, his previous attempts at aviation left much to be desired. There was that one time at the Dominguez Air Meet where his contraption crashed spectacularly, much to the disappointment of the crowd. But undeterred by past failures, Professor Zerbe embarked on his grandest project yet, the Zerbe Air Sedan. This flying machine was a sight to behold, with its fully enclosed cockpit and passenger area. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The plane had more wings than you could count, and instead of normal controls, it used a system where the wings were bent to steer. Imagine trying to drive a car by twisting the tires. To make matters worse, the engine had a habit of spitting oil onto the windshield, making it nearly impossible for the pilot to see where they were going. And if that wasn't enough, the plane had no tail. How it managed to stay in the air at all is a mystery that still baffles experts to this day. Sadly, Professor Zerbe never got to see his creation take flight. He passed away before the Zerbe Air Sedan ever left the ground. It wasn't until pilot Tom Flaherty took the reins that the plane finally soared, if only for a short distance. Some say it flew high above the ground, while others claim it barely made it off the grass. But here's where the story takes a twist. After its brief moment of glory, the Zerbe Air Sedan vanished without a trace. What happened to it? Did it crash and burn? Or did it simply fade? The answer remains shrouded in mystery, much like the fate of its creator. And just when you thought the story couldn't get any stranger, pilot Flaherty finds himself in a bit of trouble. He's slapped with a fine for assault and battery over a dispute with the plane's owners. It seems like the Zerbe Air Sedan was destined for drama, both on the ground and in the sky. So the next time you look up at the clouds, spare a thought for the Zerbe Air Sedan, a true testament to the wild and wacky world of early aviation. Who knows what other strange flying machines might be lurking out there, waiting to be discovered. 9. Vought F-6U Pirate. The Vought F-6U Pirate was a sleek, compact aircraft with a turbojet engine roaring at its rear, ready to take on the challenges of the open sky. But alas, looks can be deceiving. This aircraft, born from the dreams of engineers and the demands of the United States Navy, was a pioneer in many ways. It boasted the first ever naval fighter with an afterburner, a feature that promised unmatched power and speed. Imagine the thrill of flying in a machine that could push the limits of what was thought possible. But as the saying goes, the devil is in the details. Despite its innovative design, the F-6U Pirate suffered from a fatal flaw. It was severely underpowered. Like a sports car with a lawnmower engine, this jet struggled to keep up with its counterparts. Can you imagine zooming through the clouds, only to realize that your wings are clipped? To add insult to injury, the aircraft's aerodynamics were far from ideal. Flight testing revealed a laundry list of issues, from wonky airfoil sections to turbulent airflow around the tail. It's like trying to ride a bicycle with square wheels, an exercise in frustration. But wait, there's more. The F-6U Pirate wasn't just faced with performance problems, it also had its fair share of appearance. Take for example its skin, made of metallite, a bizarre concoction of wood and aluminum. It's like wrapping a spaceship in wrapping paper. Unconventional, to say the least. And let's not forget about the cockpit, nestled in the nose of the aircraft. With a bubble canopy offering panoramic views of the sky, it was the pilot's sanctuary during the chaos. But even here, there were reminders of the F-6U's shortcomings, like the cramped quarters and the constant whine of the engine. Despite its flaws, the F-6U Pirate soldiered on, a testament to the ingenuity and perseverance of its creators. With each setback came a solution, however unconventional. Dive brakes were added, wings were redesigned, and engines were upgraded, all in the name of taming this unruly beast of the skies. With its strange shape and awkward proportions, it's no wonder this plane tops the list of ugliest aircraft ever made. 8. Lockheed XFV. In the early 1950s, the U.S. Navy wanted a flying machine that could take off and land vertically, like a superhero. Lockheed stepped up to the challenge, with the sole purpose of creating a real-life Iron Man suit. But things didn't go as planned. The aircraft with an engine was supposed to roar like a lion, but ended up purring like a kitten. That's the XFV for you. Instead of the powerful engine it was promised, it got stuck with a 5,332 horsepower turboprop engine that sounded more like a lawnmower than a jet engine. To make matters worse, it had 3-bladed propellers that spun in opposite directions, making it look like it was trying to untangle itself from a giant rubber band. Now, let's talk about its appearance. If you thought the XFV was going to be sleek and stylish like a sports car, think again. It had a tail that looked like it belonged to an alien spaceship, a strange X-shaped contraption sticking out from its back. On the ground, it wasn't any better. Instead of proper landing gear, it had what can only be described as makeshift slits, earning it the not-so-flattering nickname, the Pogo Stick. But wait, there's more. As Lockheed engineers scratched their heads trying to figure out how to make this thing fly, they realized something terrifying. Landing it on a moving ship was like trying to catch a greased pig at a rodeo. It was nearly impossible, and the Navy started to wonder if they'd accidentally ordered a flying disaster instead of a flying marvel. In the end, there was only one XFV prototype that managed to take to the skies. Barely. It flew like a clumsy bird trying to imitate a helicopter, and when it finally touched down, it was more of a controlled crash than a graceful landing. The other prototype never even got the chance to spread its wings, ending up as a dusty relic in a forgotten corner of an airfield. Today, if you visit the Sun and Fun Campus Museum in Florida, you might stumble upon the lone XFV prototype, proudly displayed as a testament to human ambition, and maybe a cautionary tale about biting off more than you can chew. As for the XFV's dreams of becoming a superhero, well, let's just say it's better suited for comic books than the real world. But who knows? Maybe one day someone will crack the code and turn this ugly duckling into a majestic swan. Until then, it remains one of the quirkiest, clumsiest, and ugliest aircraft in history. 7. Brunelli UB-14. If airplanes could talk, the Brunelli UB-14 would have quite a story to tell. Back in 1934, a brilliant mind named Vincent Brunelli dreamed up something truly unique. Instead of a traditional tube-like fuselage, Brunelli thought, why not make it more like a wing? So, he did just that. The fuselage of the UB-14 was shaped like an airfoil, the kind of shape that helps planes fly. It was like trying to make a plane double as its own wing. Now, picture this aircraft in your mind. Twin tail booms stretching out behind it, a wide tailplane with not one, but 2 fins and rudders, and a cockpit perched on top of the wing. It's not something you'd see every day, that's for sure. The UB-14 was meant to carry people from place to place, with room for about 14 to 18 passengers. But before it could really take off, disaster struck. The first prototype had a tragic accident in 1935, blamed on some faulty maintenance. That's like getting ready for a big journey, only to trip on your shoelaces. But Vincent Brunelli wasn't one to give up easily. He went back to the drawing board and came up with a better version, the UB-14B. This time, he made some improvements, hoping to fix the issues that led to the first crash. And guess what? A company in the UK liked the idea so much that they decided to build their own version, called the Cunliffe Owen OA1. It's like taking a recipe and adding your own secret ingredients. But just when things were starting to look up, another problem arose. The Cunliffe Owen OA1 didn't pass its safety tests with flying colors. It had trouble taking off, and some shoddy craftsmanship. It's like trying to build a sandcastle, but it keeps falling apart no matter how hard you try. Despite the setbacks, one OA1 managed to find its way to Africa in 1941, where it became a personal transport for a very important person, General de Gaulle. But the story doesn't end there. This quirky aircraft met its fiery fate during the VJ Day celebrations in Egypt. It's like going out with a bang, quite literally. And so the Brunelli UB-14 may have been one of the ugliest birds in the sky, but it sure had a tale to tell, one filled with ambition, setbacks, and a touch of adventure. Who knows what other adventures it might have had if given the chance to spread its wings a little further. 6. Great Lakes XSG-1. The Great Lakes XSG-1, without thinking twice, defies conventional beauty standards. The idea behind its creation was a seaplane, born in the early 1930s, with a mission to spot the fall of shot for mighty battleships and cruisers. Sounds heroic, right? Well, hold on to your seats, because this tale takes a sharp turn into the realm of the bizarre. Let's address the elephant in the sky, its appearance. If airplanes could be described as aesthetically challenged, the XSG-1 would be their poster child. It's like someone took parts from different planes, gave them a good shake, and then threw in a dash of chaos for good measure. The result? A plane that was not designed with aerodynamics. In fact, it seemed to welcome drag and air resistance with its strange shape and protruding wings. But hey, looks aren't everything, right? Well, in this case, they might just be. The XSG-1 wasn't just a visual oddity. It was a certified flop in the performance department. Think underpowered and heavy-handed controls. And if that wasn't enough, it couldn't even keep up with its promised speed. Talk about a letdown. Now, imagine you're the gunner aboard this flying misfit. You're under attack, scrambling to mount your machine gun while wrestling with the elements. It's like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. And even if you do manage to get your weapon in position, good luck finding a decent firing angle. But that's not all. Remember those water handling tests? Let's just say they didn't exactly go swimmingly. When the Great Lakes XSG-1 was tested on the water, it quickly became apparent that it was not designed for such an environment. The spray from the water caused the pilot to be nearly blinded, and the observer-gunner compartment started filling up with water, nearly drowning the observer. The lack of an intercom system meant that the observer could not alert the pilot to his plight, and the engine eventually drowned as well. It was a disastrous test flight that revealed just how poorly suited the XSG-1 was for water operations. And yet, amidst the chaos and calamity, there's a certain charm to the XSG-1. It's like the class clown of the aviation world. You can't help but chuckle at its antics, even as you shake your head in disbelief. So, was it all just a prank? Perhaps. But one thing's for sure. The Great Lakes XSG-1 has earned its place in history as one of the ugliest, most unforgettable aircraft to ever take to the skies. 5. Grumman OV-1 Mohawk. With a tail resembling a pitchfork and wings that seemed like they were assembled with building blocks, the Grumman OV-1 Mohawk looked like it came straight out of a nightmare. But don't let its terrifying appearance fool you. This aircraft was more than just an ugly duckling. It was a reliable workhorse in the sky. Back in the late 1950s, the military needed a plane that could do it all. observe, attack, and withstand harsh conditions. That's where the Mohawk came in. It was designed to be faster, more powerful, and tougher than its predecessor, the Cessna L-19 Bird Dog. And boy, did it deliver! One of its standout features was its ability to operate from small, rough airfields in any weather. This meant it could go where other planes couldn't, making it invaluable in combat situations. Plus, its radar imaging technology was like something out of a spy movie. The side-looking airborne radar, or SLAR, could see through trees and bushes, giving soldiers on the ground a real-time view of the battlefield. But the Mohawk wasn't without its share of drama. The Air Force wasn't thrilled about its firepower, while the Marines weren't too keen on its fancy sensors. And just when things were getting interesting, the Navy decided to spend their money on a fleet oil tanker instead, leaving the Marines high and dry. Despite the setbacks, the Mohawk proved its worth time and time again. From patrolling the Korean demilitarized zone to serving in Operation Desert Storm, this ugly duckling always rose to the occasion. And even though it faced criticism and budget cuts, it soldiered on, earning its place in military history. But like all good things, the Mohawk's time eventually came to an end. After decades of service, it was finally retired by the Army in 1996. Yet its legacy lives on, reminding us that sometimes beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. 4. Vought V-173. When the topic of strange-looking planes is brought up, the Vought V-173, nicknamed the Flying Pancake, takes the cake. Imagine a pancake with wings, but instead of syrup, it's powered by two 80-horsepower engines, and instead of maple syrup, it's fueled by innovation. Back in the 1930s, a clever engineer named Charles H. Zimmerman dreamt up the idea of a disc-shaped aircraft, and the Navy liked it so much that they decided to fund its development. Fast forward to World War II, and the Vought V-173 was born, made mostly of wood and canvas. Yes, you heard that right. This quirky plane was a real head-turner. But what's so special about a pancake plane, you ask? Well, besides looking like something out of a sci-fi movie, it had some nifty tricks up its sleeve. You see, those propellers weren't just for show. They were strategically placed to counteract the drag caused by the wingtips, making this oddball surprisingly agile in the air. Now picture this, a pair of big propellers spinning in opposite directions, canceling out each other's turbulence. But flying pancakes don't come without their challenges. Controlling this airborne breakfast wasn't a piece of cake. At low speeds, it required a lot of effort to keep it on course. Thankfully, Zimmerman had a trick up his sleeve, or rather, on the tail. He added movable fins and stabilizers to help keep the flying pancake from flipping out. As the war raged on, the Navy wanted to take this pancake to the next level. They asked for a bigger, beefier version called the XF-5U-1. This time, it was made of metal and was a whopping 5 times heavier. But despite its promising looks, the XF-5U-1 never really took off. Quite literally. It managed only short hops on the runway before calling it quits. And so, the tale of the flying pancake came to an end. But its legacy lives on as one of the weirdest aircraft ever built. 3. Boeing YC-14. Because the Boeing YC-14 looked like it was put together by someone who had never seen an airplane before, and the clumsy attempt at a model kit went wrong, it stood out for all the wrong reasons. Back in the 1970s, the United States Air Force was on the lookout for a new transport aircraft, something that could take off and land on short runways, almost like a flying truck. Boeing, along with other companies, jumped at the opportunity to pitch their designs. But when Boeing unveiled their Model 953, it didn't exactly turn heads for the right reasons. You see, Boeing had been tinkering with some wild ideas, like blowing air over the top of the wings to generate extra lift. It sounds cool in theory, but in practice, it made the YC-14 look like it had giant vacuum cleaners strapped to its wings. And if that wasn't strange enough, they also borrowed some ideas from NASA, including a fancy wing shape that was supposed to reduce drag and make the plane more efficient. But instead of looking sleek and futuristic, it just made the YC-14 look awkward and out of place. Despite its odd appearance, the YC-14 managed to win a contract for 2 prototypes, much to the surprise of many in the aviation world. But as testing began, it became clear that this plane had some serious issues. Imagine trying to drive a car with square wheels. That's what it must have felt like for these test pilots as they struggled to control the YC-14. One of the biggest problems was with the engines. You see, when you blow air over the wings like Boeing was trying to do, it creates all sorts of weird airflow patterns that can mess with the engines. Engineers had to come up with some clever solutions, like adding special fins to the wings and moving the tail around, just to keep the plane from falling out of the sky. But even with all these fixes, the YC-14 never quite lived up to its promise. It could take off and land on short runways, sure, but it was slow and difficult to fly. And let's not even talk about how it looked, like a flying brick with wings. In the end, the YC-14 never made it past the prototype stage. It was just too ugly, too awkward, and too much of a headache to deal with. But hey, at least it gave us all a good laugh, and a reminder that even the best ideas can sometimes crash and burn. 2. McDonnell XF-85 Goblin. Meet the McDonnell XF-85 Goblin, a pint-sized aircraft with a big attitude. This aircraft was built to be a fighter jet's sidekick, like Robin to Batman, but for planes. You see, back in the day, when massive bombers like the B-36 took to the skies, they needed backup. But regular fighters couldn't keep up because those bombers flew far. So, some clever people at the United States Army Air Forces had an idea. Why not make a tiny fighter that could hitch a ride on the big bombers? Now imagine this. Picture a plane so small it could almost fit in your garage. That's the XF-85 Goblin for you. With its stubby wings and 3 funny-looking tail fins, it looked like it was always ready to pick a fight. But getting it off the ground wasn't easy. They had to figure out how to launch and retrieve it from the belly of the bomber. Now, let's dive into the nitty-gritty. The XF-85 Goblin wasn't just any tiny plane. It was packed with firepower. It had 4 machine guns in its nose, ready to take on any enemy daring to mess with its bomber buddy. But here's the twist. It had no landing gear. Can you imagine flying a plane without wheels? Instead, it had a hook that latched it onto a special trapeze for takeoff and landing. Despite its small size, this little Goblin had big dreams. The plan was to have a whole fleet of them, riding shotgun on bombers like a squad of tiny guardians. They even had a name picked out: Fighter Carriers. But like any daring adventure, things didn't go exactly as planned. After building 2 prototypes and giving them the name Goblin, the USAAF hit the brakes. They wanted to see how these little planes performed before ordering more. And so, the fate of the XF-85 Goblin hung in the balance. Would it prove itself worthy of joining the ranks of legendary planes? Or would it be grounded before it could spread its wings? The McDonnell 85 Goblin may have been small, but it left a big impression on aviation history. 1. Boeing X-32. Introducing the #1 spot on our list, the Boeing X-32. Let's dive into the turbulent tale of this aircraft and why it earned its less than flattering title. Back in 2006, when the Lockheed Martin F-35 was soaring as an emblem of U.S. air power, Boeing had its sights set high with the X-32. This aircraft's journey began amidst the common affordable lightweight fighter, CAF project, which later grew into the Joint Strike Fighter (JSF) program in the 1990s. Boeing and Lockheed Martin stepped up to the plate, presenting their concept demonstrators, the X-32 and the X-35 respectively. While Lockheed Martin clinched the final design contract in 2001, Boeing didn't throw in the towel just yet. They poured effort into the X-32, hitting milestones in the late 90s and early 2000s. In December 1998, Boeing celebrated completing a final design review, locking in details from airframe to propulsion. They even crafted two variants, the X-32A for conventional airfields and the X-32B for short takeoff and vertical landing, catering to different military needs. The X-32A took to the skies in September 2000, with Boeing's chief test pilot Fred Knox giving it a thumbs up for flight experience. But the real thrill came a few months later, when it broke the sound barrier, marking a supersonic milestone in December 2000. Boeing wrapped up flight testing in February 2001, hopeful for what lay ahead. Alas, despite Boeing's valiant efforts, victory slipped through their fingers as Lockheed Martin secured the system development and demonstration contract. Boeing faced a $46 million setback, with idle manufacturing assets adding to the blow. In contrast, Lockheed Martin celebrated an $18 billion windfall, gearing up for what they dubbed a cornerstone of future defense capability. As Lockheed Martin prepared for low-rate production in 2005 and 6, Boeing was left to reckon with dashed dreams. The X-32's fate was sealed, relegated to the annals of aviation history as a reminder of the highs and lows of the aerospace industry. And so, the Boeing X-32 takes its rightful place as the #1 contender in our lineup of the top 10 ugliest aircraft in history. But in the world of aviation, where dreams take flight and fortunes can change in a heartbeat, one can't help but wonder what other surprises await on the horizon. If you had a good time watching this video, be sure to check out the recommended video on your screen, which covers even more fascinating facts about the aviation industry. Until next time, thanks for watching.